Some folks inherit money. Others get family heirlooms, dusty antiques, or a name worth more than gold in town. Me? I got acres. Not just any acres. Sun-seared, gravel-veined, goat-stomping, tractor-bucking land that smells like hay in the morning and diesel at night. Land that remembers things. My grandfather dug fence posts here with hands the size of iron skillets. My dad bled into this dirt more than once. And me, I've kept it alive with busted knuckles and sweat that burns your neck by noon. So when strangers stroll up acting like they own it, my blood doesn't just boil, it bites. That morning was like any other. Roosters crowed late because the storm had them nervous, and Bear, my eldest mutt, was sprawled across the porch like he paid the taxes. Grizzle was chewing through a tennis ball like it owed him money. I was elbow-deep in fixing the carburetor on my old Massey tractor, sun already high and mean, when I heard the gravel pop under unfamiliar tires. Now, out here, unannounced visitors mean one of three things: lost city slicker, nosy real estate vulture, or trouble wrapped in a clipboard. It was the third. She stepped out of that shiny white SUV like she was dismounting a royal carriage. Slacks too clean for gravel, heels too thin for country, and a face that looked like it hadn't smiled since cable TV went out of style. The wind caught the hem of her blouse, some corporate lavender color, and she smoothed it like the land owed her neatness. In one hand, she clutched a clipboard like a holy text. The other was already jabbing toward my fence. "You must be Mr. Bennett." "I am," I said, wiping grease off my palms with a rag that used to be a shirt. "I'm Grace, president of the Shadow Creek Homeowners Association." She said it like I was supposed to salute. "Didn't know dirt and goats qualified as a suburb," I replied. Her eyes narrowed. "We've received reports of unregulated activity on this parcel. Specifically, short-term rental operations. Airbnb. Possibly more." I stared at her. Chickens clucked in the background like they were laughing. "This here's a working farm, ma'am. Closest thing to an Airbnb is a hayloft and a goat that snores." She didn't smile, just flipped a page and pointed at my cabin. "That structure falls within the boundary buffer of Shadow Creek. According to our bylaws, your bylaws don't stretch past that line of oaks," I said, jerking my chin to the tree line. "My property's been outside HOA lines since before you people built your first vinyl mailbox." She took a step closer to the gate. Bear sat up. "Well, that may be disputed, and I have full board authority to inspect any property within 50 feet of the zoning buffer for compliance." "Ma'am," I said, stepping toward her, "this ain't a compliance issue. This is trespassing, and your HOA doesn't run out here." Her nostrils flared like a horse sniffing thunder. "Refusal to comply will result in legal escalation." I leaned on the gatepost, arms crossed. "You go ahead and escalate." Behind me, the wind rustled the cornrows and the barn door creaked open just enough for Grizzle to poke his head out, eyes locked on her. His tongue lolled lazily, but his stance was all warning. Grace scribbled something on her clipboard, each stroke like she was stabbing the paper. "This isn't over," she snapped. "Didn't think it was," I replied. "But let me be clear. You cross this gate without a warrant, you'll be greeted by things that don't speak legalese." She didn't respond, just marched back to her SUV like the gravel had personally insulted her and peeled off with a cloud of dust trailing like regret. Bear huffed. Grizzle barked once, sharp and satisfied. I didn't know it yet, but that wasn't her retreat. It was her declaration of war. And she was about to learn. Out here, you don't bully the dirt. It buries you. 3 days passed without a word from Grace. Not that I expected silence to last. Folks like her don't retreat, they regroup. She was the type to print out her HOA handbook on silk sheets and sleep with it under her pillow. And sure enough, just as the sun dipped behind the grain silo on a Thursday evening, I got the first whiff of her next move. It came in the form of Frank. He's my neighbor down the ridge. Good man, 2 stents in his heart and a smoker's cough that could crack drywall. He showed up in his old Dodge with a 6-pack of Shiner and an expression that said, "Brace yourself." "You see the meeting agenda?" he asked as we sat on the tailgate. "Haven't read an agenda since high school detention," I said. He handed me his phone. It was a screenshot from the Shadow Creek HOA group chat. "Urgent. Board meeting to discuss property code violations adjacent to east boundary. Unpermitted structures, suspicious dog activity, and potential STRs, short-term rentals. Inspection vote to follow. Beneath that, a blurry satellite photo of my land with a red circle around my cabin, like Grace had scouted it from orbit. I handed the phone back. Suspicious dog activity? Frank chuckled, then coughed. She's been telling people you've got unlicensed attack dogs. Like some backwoods cartel. Bear, who was sleeping belly up under the truck, snorted on cue. Grizzle was busy growling at a plastic bag, caught in a bush. She thinks this is a suburb, I muttered. No, Frank said, cracking open a beer. She thinks it's a kingdom, and you just built a castle on her border. That night, I did something I hadn't done since the wildfires 5 years ago. I checked every gate, reset all the camera angles, and moved Bear and Grizzle's food bowls closer to the house. Not because I was scared, hell no, but because Grace was unpredictable. The kind of dangerous that comes dressed in paperwork and weaponized politeness. The next morning, a letter came. It wasn't from the county. It wasn't even stamped by the post office. Just a pristine envelope slipped under my gate like a warning shot. Inside was a formal notice of scheduled property review signed by the full HOA board. They'd voted. Unanimous approval. Inspection will occur no later than Friday at noon. Per HOA Charter Code 7B, Section 11. I stopped reading. There was no 7B on my land. No Section 11. No jurisdiction. But I knew the truth. This wasn't legal. It was personal. Grace wasn't defending property values. She was testing mine. That evening, I got the second whiff. My motion camera at the Old Creek path caught movement. Not Grace. Not yet. Just 2 HOA volunteers, clipboard disciples. They crept near my back fence line, squinting through the trees like birdwatchers hoping to spot a violation. Grizzle met them first. The camera caught the moment. 2 men backing away fast, tripping over roots, one dropping his phone while Grizzle barked loud enough to wake buried bones. They didn't step onto my land, but they were close. I replayed the footage 4 times before deleting it, because I knew what this was now. It wasn't about rules. It was about control. I spent the next day prepping. Locked every gate twice. Hung fresh private property signs with new bold red font. Posted beware of dogs signs at every entrance and added reflective strips for night visibility. Not because it was necessary, but because Grace would ignore them. And I wanted it on record. Bear and Grizzle followed me around the property like twin shadows, sensing the tension. Dogs know when storms are coming. And this wasn't just weather. It was siege. That night, I packed for a trip upstate. Tractor Supply auction. Had it scheduled for weeks. Just bad timing now. I topped off the feeders, double-checked the locks, and gave my boys one last scratch behind the ears. You see anything that ain't me? I said, crouching to look Bear in the eyes. You know what to do. He licked my chin. Grizzle whined. I drove off just after sunrise, unaware that Grace had been watching. She saw me leave, and she took it as an invitation. I was 2 hours upstate, halfway through haggling over a rebuilt carburetor when my phone buzzed. Motion alert. East Gate. At first, I didn't think much. Could have been a coyote, or maybe Bear had knocked the sensor again, chasing squirrels. Still, something gnawed at me. That slow, crawling dread you get before a lightning strike. I pulled out my phone and tapped the live feed. And there she was. Grace. Wearing that same lavender blouse like a flag of war. She was squeezing through the side fence like some HOA raccoon, clipboard in hand, lips pursed like she was sucking lemons. She ducked under the first camera, the decoy one, and muttered to herself like she was casting a spell. My pulse quickened. She didn't knock, didn't call, didn't bring the board or law enforcement or even a neighbor. She came alone. She came smug. And she came trespassing. I zoomed the camera just in time to see her push past the "Do Not Enter" sign with the dog silhouettes printed in bold, red ink. 1 foot, then the next, onto my gravel path, the one lined with fresh tire mark from my truck that should have told her, the owner isn't home. That's what she wanted. No weaknesses. No resistance. Just her clipboard, and her fantasy of control. What she didn't count on was Bear and Grizzle. They had been napping under the porch, half dozing in the shade. But the moment Grace's boots touched that gravel, their ears flicked up like radar dishes. Bear moved first. No bark, just speed. Grace had made it halfway to the cabin, muttering some HOA code to herself, when he exploded from under the steps. A 90-pound blur of fur and fury, all muscle and purpose. I watched, helpless, as her smug strut turned into a shriek. She spun, tried to run, but her foot caught the edge of the path. Her clipboard flew like a frisbee. She flailed in midair, arms windmilling, before hitting the dirt hard. Grizzle came next. Barking like hell opened up and sent a messenger. He circled once, teeth flashing, hackles raised. They didn't kill. They're not that kind of dog. But they didn't shake paws either. Bear lunged and snapped, caught fabric, not flesh. Tore the side of her blouse clean. Grizzle nipped her calf, enough to bruise, maybe break skin. And then both of them stood over her, growling low, waiting. It was the sound that got me, the one from the live feed. Grace panting and crying, not in agony but in shock. How dare the world not bend? That kind of cry. She crawled backward, heels digging into the dirt, blouse torn, hair wild. Then she ran, limping, flailing, screaming something about lawsuits and rabies and God knows what else. The camera followed her up to the gate she didn't use the first time. She stumbled out, falling once more in the ditch by the mailbox, before finally making it to her SUV and driving off in a cloud of dust and wounded pride. I called 911, not because I was in trouble, but because I want it all on record. I uploaded the footage, gave my full name, explained the property lines, the signs, the cameras, the dogs. The dispatcher was calm, almost amused. Told me to return home, but not worry. Said, "We've had calls about her before." That's when I knew Grace wasn't just a nuisance. She was a known problem dressed in pearl earrings. I hit the road home, heart thudding, hands tight on the wheel. Anger wasn't hot. It was cold, steady, the kind of anger that hardens into stone. By the time I got back, the sheriff was already waiting, arms crossed, boots dusty. Grace was in the ambulance, bandaged, yelling. "She broke the law," I said as I stepped out of the truck. The sheriff didn't flinch. We saw everything. This was no longer a land dispute. This was war, and I had footage, the law, and 2 loyal dogs on my side. But I wasn't thinking about victory. I was thinking about the way she'd looked, shocked that the land bit back, and how people like Grace never just walk away. They regroup, and they get uglier. By the time Monday hit, the video was already making rounds, though I hadn't shared it. I gave it only to the sheriff. But someone in that department, or maybe one of the EMTs fed up with HOA drama, leaked the footage. A 7-minute highlight reel. Grace trespassing, ignoring signs, slipping through the fence like a suburban snake, and getting chased off by 2 barking sentinels of the dirt. It went viral faster than dry grass in a lightning storm. Title: Karen tries inspecting a ranch, gets checked by country dogs caption. She really thought the HOA applied to livestock. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. People were howling, not just at the dogs, but at her theatrical tumble, her shrieking exit, and that smug clipboard flying through the air like justice delivered by wind. But Grace didn't disappear. She dug in. She showed up in court 2 days later, limping dramatically, a crutch tucked under one arm, and her left wrist wrapped like she'd survived a car crash, not a fall in some dirt. She even wore a neck brace. I swear, if she could have brought a full casket to prove trauma, she would have. Her lawyer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The courtroom was small. Our local judge was older than my barn, sharp as barbed wire, and allergic to nonsense. Grace sat with her clipboard in her lap, like it was evidence from the Book of Truth. Her lawyer launched into a performance worthy of Broadway. Assault, reckless endangerment, ownership negligence, intentional release of dangerous animals, emotional distress. They made me sound like I ran a dog-fighting pit in the middle of a meth lab. When the judge asked if they had evidence, they presented photos of her scratches, her torn blouse, and a screenshot of my "Beware of Dog" sign, as if that was some kind of confession. Then came my turn. I stood calm, wore a clean shirt, spoke plain. "Your Honor," I said, "my land is private. It's fenced. It's posted. It's patrolled by cameras and by 2 trained dogs that don't attack unless provoked or surprised. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof of trespass? I clicked a USB stick and slid it to the clerk. The courtroom went silent as the video played. There was Grace, squeezing through the fence, talking to herself, ignoring the signs, walking boldly into someone else's world like she was entitled to the dirt under her shoes. Then the dogs, then the fall, then the screams. When it ended, you could hear the clock ticking behind the bench. Her lawyer tried to sputter something about animal control procedures, but the judge held up one hand. "Let me stop you there," he said. "This wasn't assault. This was arrogance." Grace's mouth opened like she wanted to object, but the judge didn't give her the floor. He dismissed the charges. All of them. Just like that. And then he turned to me. "Mr. Bennett," he said, "you have the right to press charges, trespass, property invasion, false claims. Do you intend to pursue?" I paused. The only might have said yes. Might have enjoyed dragging her through every courtroom in the state until she learned that fences mean something. But watching her sitting there, red-faced, trembling, defeated not by me, but by her own delusion, I realized something. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about distance. "No, Your Honor," I said, "but I'd like a restraining order. Keep her off my land. Permanently." He nodded. "Granted." Outside, the sky was thick with August heat. Grace limped to her SUV, still trying to hold what was left of her composure. I didn't gloat, didn't smile, just stood on the courthouse steps, feeling the burn of sun on my shoulders and the weight of something heavier, the knowledge that she wasn't done. People like Grace don't lose gracefully. They retreat, and then they retaliate. But now I had the law behind me, and the whole damn internet watching. And if she ever came back, she wouldn't be met with barking. She'd be met with silence. Because I wouldn't even open the gate. It should have ended in court. Restraint granted. Charges dropped. Reputation salvaged. Any sane person would have taken the loss and faded into HOA obscurity. But Grace wasn't wired for quiet defeat. She wanted to win, even if she had to dig it out of scorched earth. The morning it all snapped, I was walking the fence line with Bear. Grizzle was a few paces behind, sniffing every post like it owed him an explanation. The air was heavy, storm-thick, even though the sky was clear. You learn to feel those things living close to the ground, like the dirt knows something you don't. That's when I saw it. Fresh tire tracks. Not from a truck. Too narrow. Too clean. A car. Low profile. Likely hers. They cut across the south road, past the posted signs, turned around just inside the gate, then backed out fast. Like whoever drove and didn't expect to see the cameras repositioned. Didn't expect the new signs I'd added. Didn't expect me. I walked over to the motion sensor logs. The alert came in at 3:17 a.m. She'd come back. Not to confront. Not to inspect. But to provoke. That afternoon, a certified letter arrived. This time, from the county zoning office. It was an official complaint. Animal safety violations, environmental hazards, noise complaints from nearby residents. 23 pages long, all signed by Grace. She was trying a new front. If she couldn't win through law, or trespass, or shame, she'd try to drown me in paperwork. Bury me in bureaucracy. The woman was fireproof. But fireproof things still melt. They just need higher heat. I called my lawyer. Called the sheriff. Called zoning. One by one, I walked them through every accusation, every camera angle, every timestamp. The truth held like steel. But it was the last page of the complaint that broke the mold. She'd requested that my dogs be temporarily removed, pending investigation. Removed. From my land. From the land they'd protected. The land they'd never once failed. That wasn't about safety. That was a direct shot to the heart. I don't remember standing up from the table, but I remember the leash. It hung near the back door. I hadn't used it in years. Bear and Grizzle don't need restraint. They're born to this place. They know its edges better than I ever will. But I grabbed it, and I walked out into the field with them at my side. We crossed the ridge, through the cotton rows, to the bluff overlooking Shadow Creek. Their houses were there. Identical roofs, paved driveways, fake grass, and fences built for show. It looked like a model town from a distance. Perfect. Controlled. Soulless. Then I saw her. Down the hill, standing in her yard, pruning roses like she hadn't tried to burn my life to the ground. And I swear, she saw me. She looked up. We locked eyes across that gully. And in that silent standoff, I felt it, the climax, the moment where something inside breaks or heals. I didn't move. Neither did she. But Bear growled. Not loud, not aggressive, just a sound full of knowing. A warning. I turned back, said nothing, filed no lawsuit, made no threats. I let the land do what the land always does. It remembers, and it speaks in other ways. The county dismissed the complaint a week later. The sheriff's office issued a statement confirming her excessive misuse of emergency channels. The HOA removed her again, this time not temporarily. But that wasn't the win. The real win came days later, when a kid from town, some Gen Z type with a drone and a TikTok following, posted a remix of the footage. Split screen. Grace yelling about bylaws on the left, Bear and Grizzle barking on the right. Soundtrack, Johnny Cash. Caption, you can't HOA the wild. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. And for the first time, Shadow Creek wasn't laughing with her. They were laughing at her. Sometimes justice doesn't come in courtrooms. Sometimes it rides in on four paws and teeth that don't lie. And sometimes it sounds like the low growl of a dog that remembers every inch of the dirt that raised him. Peace didn't return all at once. It came in small things, like the silence of my motion sensors, the absence of tire tracks near the fence line, the way Bear stopped pacing the porch at midnight, and Grizzle no longer barked at shadows that wore perfume and wielded clipboards. For a while, I thought maybe Grace had given up, that the sting of courtroom loss, public humiliation, and viral infamy had finally pushed her to retreat into her HOA-sized castle and stay there. But deep down, I knew better. People like Grace don't surrender. They settle until they find another weakness. Another gate left open. But I wasn't the same man anymore either. I'd always kept the land, tilled it, guarded it, respected it. But after everything she tried to take from me, I began to understand it in a different way. Land, I realized, isn't just a place. It's a reflection of the soul. You protect it because you must. Not with lawsuits, not with rage, but with conviction. And dogs, if necessary. The town moved on quickly. It always does. New scandals, new gossip. HOA Karen stories became old news as soon as the next water bill spike rolled in. But in the corners of the internet, the clip lived on. Some digital echo of resistance and poetic justice. It made its way to farm forums, rural Reddit threads, even a few survivalist message boards. I get emails from strangers in Ohio, Texas, even one from Norway. Folks thanking me for standing up to the clipboard class. Some shared stories of their own. Fences violated, properties bullied, neighbors turned into petty tyrants. We all knew a Grace. She wasn't rare, just loud. One day, a young woman showed up at my gate. Didn't look like much. Jeans, work gloves, a steel thermos slung from her bag. Said she was studying zoning laws at the university and asked if she could interview me about sovereign rural ownership for her thesis. I almost laughed. Ma'am, I grow tomatoes and raise goats. I don't speak in academic riddles. But Bear liked her. That's always my gauge. So I let her in. We sat on the porch while Grizzle gnawed on a knotted rope, and she asked me about boundaries, not the kind you measure with a surveyor's wheel, but the ones that live inside people. The ones HOA charters can't find on a map. That conversation stuck with me long after she drove away. Grace never stepped foot on my property again. Not once. She still lives in that same house. Window boxes just as sharp, hedges trimmed like parade floats. I hear she tried to run for board president again, but even her allies didn't bite. The community had changed. Maybe it was the video. Maybe it was the realization that control, once cracked, is hard to seal again. Now, when we pass each other in town, and it's rare, she looks past me. Not at me. Not through me. Just past. And that's fine. Some people never look you in the eye unless they think they can own you. It's been 8 months since the last knock on my gate that wasn't friendly. Seasons rolled forward like they always do. Rain in spring, fireflies in summer, cracked ground in August. I fixed the barn roof, sold a couple goats, even started building a little guest cabin, not for rent, just for family. I hung a new sign at the east gate. It reads, "And no trespassing. You'll meet the dogs before you meet me." It's not a threat. It's a truth. Last week, I took a walk just before sundown. The sky looked bruised, deep purples and ember reds, the kind that make you feel small in the best way. Bear and Grizzle trotted ahead, chasing smells I couldn't name. We stopped near the northern ridge. From there, you can see the whole property. The rolling fields, the cabin, the tree line where Grace once squeezed through, the gravel path where she stumbled, where the dogs barked, where everything turned. And I just stood there for a while, breathing in the dry air and letting it settle in my bones. No music, no shouting, no legal threats, just wind and dirt and two dogs at my side. I could have destroyed her. Financially, legally, publicly. I had every right. But sometimes, the deeper justice is in the silence that follows. In the space where your name no longer sits in someone else's mouth. Where your land stands untouched. Not because you scared them, but because you endured them. That's what this place taught me. Not just how to work the soil, but how to hold the line. And if Grace ever forgets, if she ever thinks to test the fence again, the land will remember. The dogs will rise. And this time, I won't just press record. I'll close the gate behind her.